3 weeks after the Battle of Sol, humanity held its collective breath. The ceasefire was holding, but everyone knew it was temporary. Both alien empires had pulled back to lick their wounds, but they would return. Next time with more ships, better strategies, and a determination to wipe out the species that had embarrassed them. Junho stood in the war room looking at star maps with fresh eyes. Around him sat his core team, Hana, Taeyang, Yuna, Minho, and several other commanders who'd proven themselves in battle. The mood was grim but determined. "We can't just wait for them to come back," Taeyang said, breaking the silence. "Next time they'll be prepared for our tactics. Next time they'll overwhelm us, so we don't wait," Junho replied. "We take the fight to them." The room went quiet. The idea was insane. Humanity had barely survived defending their own home. Now they wanted to attack two massive empires? In their own territory? Hana pulled up data on her tablet, information she'd been gathering for weeks. "I've been studying their supply lines. Both the Velkari and the Draxan have been fighting for years. That means they need massive amounts of resources. Food, fuel, weapons, parts. All of it has to come from somewhere and get delivered to the front lines." She highlighted several systems on the star map. These are their logistics hubs. Not heavily defended because they're deep in their own territory. They never expected anyone to strike there. "Because it's suicide," someone muttered. "Only if we fight like they expect," Yuna said. She was leaning forward, eyes bright with the same reckless energy that had made her first strike successful. "We don't need to destroy their fleets. We just need to make it impossible for them to maintain this war." Minho nodded slowly. "Cut the supply lines. They can have all the fancy warships they want, but if those ships have no fuel, no ammunition, no food for their crews, they're useless." "Exactly," Hana confirmed. "Both empires are stretched thin. This war has been going on for so long that they're running on fumes. A few well-placed strikes could cripple their war efforts completely." Junho studied the map. The logistics hubs were spread across dozens of systems. To hit them all would require splitting their forces dangerously thin. But if they didn't do something, the aliens would return and finish what they started. "We need volunteers again," he said finally. "Small strike teams, fast ships, quick raids, and then out before they can respond. We'll hit both empires simultaneously so neither can help the other." Over the next week, humanity mobilized every combat-capable ship they could spare. It wasn't much, less than 50 vessels total, but each one was crewed by people who'd proven they could survive against impossible odds. Yuna took command of the Velkari operation. Her target was a massive fuel depot in the Kepler sector, deep in Velkari space. Intelligence suggested it supplied over a third of their military fleet. Captain Yunji led the team targeting Draxan space. Her mission was to sabotage food production facilities on 3 different colony worlds. The Draxan needed specific nutrients that could only be grown in controlled environments. Destroy those facilities and their entire species would start starving within months. "This is going to make them really angry," Yunji said during the final briefing. "Good," Junho replied. "Angry enemies make mistakes, and we need them making mistakes." The raids began simultaneously across multiple sectors. Yuna's fleet jumped into the Kepler sector and immediately encountered a problem. The fuel depot was defended by 20 Velkari warships. Her entire force was only 8 ships. "Well, this is going to be interesting," Yuna muttered. "All ships, execute plan chaos." The human vessels didn't try to fight the defending fleet. Instead, they scattered in 8 different directions, each one broadcasting false signals to make it look like they were carrying nuclear weapons. The Velkari commanders had to make a choice: chase all 8 contacts or defend the depot. They chose wrong. Most of the defending fleet went after the human ships, leaving the depot lightly defended. That's when Yuna's real weapon arrived, a single small transport piloted by Jiho. "I'm in position," Jiho reported, his fighter invisible to Velkari sensors because it was running completely cold, drifting like a piece of debris. "Light it up," Yuna ordered. Jiho activated a device that Suji had built specifically for this mission. It wasn't a bomb. It was something more elegant. A device that caused the fuel depot's containment systems to fail slowly. By the time the Velkari realized what was happening, their entire fuel supply would be contaminated and unusable. On the Draxan front, Yunji and her team were having their own problems. They'd managed to land on the first colony world and infiltrate the food production facilities, but getting inside had been the easy part. Getting out was going to be much harder. "Security is converging on our position," her tactical officer June reported. We have maybe 5 minutes before they seal the exits. Yunji looked at the massive biodomes around them, each one growing the special algae that formed the basis of the Draxan diet. Her team had already planted charges throughout the facility. One button press and months of food production would be destroyed. But if they blew the charges now, they'd never make it out alive. June, how attached are you to the ship? Yunji asked. It's a nice ship, why? Because we're going to crash it into the main dome as a distraction. They set the ship on autopilot, aimed it at the largest dome, and ran. The ship hit at full speed, breaching the dome and causing chaos. Alarms blared. Security rushed to contain the breach. And in the confusion, Yunji's team escaped through a maintenance tunnel. Blow the charges, she ordered once they were clear. The explosions weren't large, but they didn't need to be. The carefully balanced ecosystems inside the domes were fragile. Even small amounts of damage would contaminate entire batches of food. The Draxan would have to spend months sterilizing and rebuilding before they could produce food again. Across multiple sectors, similar stories played out. Human teams struck at targets both empires had thought were safe. Mining operations, communication relays, manufacturing plants. Nothing dramatic or flashy. Just cold, calculated strikes at the infrastructure that made war possible. The aliens' response was predictable. Both empires sent ships to hunt down the human raiders, but finding 8 human ships in the vastness of space was like finding needles in an ocean. By the time alien fleets arrived at one location, the humans were already attacking somewhere else. Kai led a small team that specialized in sabotaging Velkari communication networks. They didn't destroy the networks. Instead, they introduced subtle errors, changed routing protocols, corrupted message packets. The Velkari military suddenly found themselves unable to coordinate effectively. Bora, recovered from her neural interface ordeal, took her drones deep into Draxan territory. Her target was a weapons manufacturing facility. She didn't blow it up. Instead, her drones infiltrated the production line and changed specifications by tiny amounts. The weapons coming out of that factory would appear normal, but would fail at critical moments. This is psychological warfare, Hana explained to the Coalition Council. We're not just attacking their ability to fight. We're attacking their confidence. Every time they reach for a weapon, use a communication system, or refuel a ship, they'll have to wonder, did the humans sabotage this? The campaign lasted for 3 months. 3 months of constant raids, sabotage, and disruption. The Velkari and Draxan tried to adapt, but every time they thought they'd figured out humanity's pattern, the humans would do something completely different. A young engineer named Minji came up with the most effective tactic yet. She created a simple virus that infected alien computer systems and did nothing. Absolutely nothing. It just sat there hidden in the code. The aliens knew something was wrong because their security systems could detect the infection, but they couldn't figure out what it did. The paranoia this caused was devastating. Both empires spent enormous resources trying to find and eliminate the virus, never realizing it was harmless. Entire fleets were grounded while their systems were checked and rechecked. Weapons platforms were shut down for maintenance. The war between the Velkari and Draxan ground to a halt as both sides focused on the phantom threat. Then the supplies started running out. Ships couldn't refuel, soldiers went hungry, communication broke down, manufacturing slowed. Both empires found themselves facing internal unrest as their populations began questioning why they were fighting this war in the first place. The Velkari government fell first. A coalition of civilian leaders who were tired of the endless war took power and immediately called for peace talks. Not just with the Draxan, with humanity too. The Draxan collective held out longer, but they couldn't maintain their war effort alone. When their own people started demanding an end to the fighting, their leaders had no choice but to agree. Junho received both requests within hours of each other. Both empires wanted to negotiate, not from positions of strength. They wanted peace because they were exhausted, broken, and desperate. The Second Treaty of Geneva Station took 6 weeks to negotiate. This time, humans didn't just sit at the table. They dictated terms. The 3 disputed colonies would remain under human control. Both empires would pay reparations for the attacks on human space. Trade agreements would be established on equal terms. But it proved something crucial. Humanity could fight back. The warning came 3 days after Yuna's raid on the Xerxes belt. Both alien empires were sending fleets to the Sol system, not to negotiate, not to threaten, to punish. Commander Minho stood in the operations center on Luna Base, staring at the tactical display. The numbers made his stomach turn. 200 Valkyrie ships approaching from one direction, 150 Draxan vessels from another. Against this, humanity could field maybe 60 combat-capable ships, and most of those were converted civilian vessels with weapons bolted on wherever they could fit. "They're really doing this," his second-in-command said quietly. "They're putting aside their war just to crush us." Minho nodded. "We hurt their pride. Made them look weak. They can't let that stand. Even if it means working together temporarily. Sir, we should evacuate Earth. Get as many people off-world as possible before they arrive." "And go where?" Minho asked. "They're coming from 2 directions. They'll catch any evacuation ships in open space. No, we stand and fight. We make them pay for every meter of space." The truth was, Minho knew they couldn't win, not in any conventional sense. The alien fleets would reach Earth in 5 days. 5 days to prepare for the worst battle humanity had ever faced. 5 days to figure out how to fight an enemy that massively outgunned them. But Junho had promoted him to defend the Sol system for a reason. Minho didn't think like a traditional military commander. He thought like an engineer. And engineers didn't win by having the best tools. They won by using the tools they had in creative ways. "Get me every available resource," Minho ordered. "Every mining drone, every construction robot, every piece of equipment we can repurpose. If it can move and carry something, I want it listed." His staff looked confused but began working. Within an hour, Minho had a complete inventory of everything in the Sol system. Thousands of mining drones in the asteroid belt. Hundreds of construction robots working on various projects. Cargo haulers. Repair ships. Even old satellites that hadn't been used in years. "What are you thinking?" his second asked. Minho pulled up a new tactical display. Instead of showing enemy positions, it showed every single object in the Sol system. Billions of pieces, from massive ships down to chunks of space debris smaller than a fist. "The aliens expect fortresses," Minho said. "They expect big defense platforms and organized fleet formations. They expect us to fight like they do. So we won't. We're going to turn the entire system into a weapon." Over the next 3 days, the Sol system transformed. Every mining drone in the belt was reprogrammed with new instructions. They didn't mine anymore. Instead, they became bombs, each one loaded with as much explosive material as it could carry. Thousands of small, fast-moving objects that looked like debris on sensors. Construction robots were fitted with simple weapons and basic AI. They wouldn't last long in a fight, but they didn't need to. They just needed to swarm. Every piece of space junk, every old satellite, every abandoned ship hull was rigged with either explosives or jamming equipment. The goal was simple: make it impossible for the aliens to know what was a threat and what wasn't. On Luna, a young woman named Bora sat in a neural interface chair, her mind connected to a network of 50 combat drones. It was experimental technology, barely tested, and connecting a human brain to that many systems at once could cause permanent damage. But Bora had volunteered anyway. "How does it feel?" the technician asked nervously. "Like I have 50 pairs of eyes," Bora said. Her voice sounded distant, distracted, like I can see in every direction at once. It's beautiful. She wasn't the only one. Across the Sol system, hundreds of volunteers were linking their minds to drone networks. Some controlled 10 drones, some controlled 20. Bora was the most successful so far, but they were still testing the limits. The aliens would have never done this. Their species were too cautious, too concerned with safety. But humans had always been willing to risk themselves when necessary. It was how they'd survived this long. On Mars, Lieutenant Kai prepared his small squadron for the defense of the colony. He had 15 fighters, all outdated models that should have been retired years ago. His pilots were a mix of veterans and rookies, people who'd volunteered knowing they probably wouldn't survive. "Listen up," Kai told his squadron over the comm. "We all know how this looks. We're outnumbered and outgunned. The enemy thinks we'll break and run. So here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to fight for every second, every meter, every breath. We're going to make them earn their victory so hard they'll wish they'd never come here." His pilots responded with grim determination. No falso bravado. No pretending they weren't scared. Just acceptance of what needed to be done. When the alien fleets arrived at the edge of the Sol system, they were confident. Humanity's homeworld lay before them, defended by a pitiful number of ships. This would be over quickly. The upstart species would learn their lesson and never dare challenge their betters again. The Velkari fleet moved in first, their crystalline ships gleaming in the sunlight. Their formation was perfect, their tactics textbook. They expected to meet humanity's main fleet in open space, destroy it, and then move on to Earth itself. Instead, they encountered chaos. Thousands of objects suddenly activated across a massive area of space. Mining drones exploded like fireworks, creating clouds of shrapnel and radiation. Construction robots swarmed forward, their crude weapons barely scratching the alien shields but forcing the Velkari ships to waste time targeting them. "This is madness," the Velkari fleet commander said as his sensors tried to make sense of the battlefield. "What are they doing?" The answer became clear when Bora and her fellow neural operators engaged. Their combat drones moved with a precision that seemed impossible. They didn't fly like machines following pre-programmed patterns. They flew like extensions of human thought, unpredictable and creative. Bora's 50 drones worked as a single unit, coordinating attacks that the Velkari targeting systems couldn't track. They would strike at a ship's shield generator from 10 different angles at once, overwhelming it. Then they'd vanish into the debris clouds before the aliens could respond. The Velkari fleet slowed, forced to carefully scan every piece of debris, every floating object, because any of them might be a threat. The quick victory they'd expected turned into a grinding advance through a minefield of human ingenuity. On the other side of the system, the Draxan fleet faced similar problems. Their tentacled commanders prided themselves on their collective intelligence, their ability to process information faster than any individual species. But they'd never encountered anything like this. Signals jammed, sensors gave false readings. Every attempt to organize their fleet was disrupted by small human ships appearing from nowhere, attacking and vanishing again. It was like fighting smoke. Kai led his squadron in a desperate defense of Mars, his 15 fighters against over 100 Draxan ships. The odds were impossible, and he knew it. So he didn't try to win, he tried to buy time. "Hit and run," Kai ordered his pilots. "Never stay in one place. Use the debris, use the planet's gravity well, use anything you can. Make them chase you." His fighters danced through Martian orbit, leading Draxan ships on wild chases through the atmosphere, around moons, through satellite fields. Every minute they survived was a minute Earth's defenders could prepare. A pilot named June managed to destroy a Draxan cruiser by luring it into a field of old satellites that Minho's team had rigged with explosives. The cruiser's shields meant nothing when surrounded by mines on all sides. But the aliens were adapting. Their superior numbers and technology began to tell. Kai watched as one of his fighters was caught by a gravity weapon and crushed. Then another. His squadron was being whittled down. "All units fall back to secondary positions," Kai ordered, his voice hoarse from hours of combat. "We've done what we can here." The battle raged for 5 days. Not hours, days. The aliens had expected to sweep through the Sol system in a matter of hours. Instead, they found themselves in a grinding fight against an enemy that refused to break. Bora pushed her mind to the limit, controlling her drones even as exhaustion threatened to shut down her brain. She'd been in the neural interface for 72 hours straight. Doctors begged her to disconnect, but she refused. Every drone she controlled was one more weapon humanity had. When she finally passed out from exhaustion, she destroyed 4 Velkari warships and crippled a dozen more. Not bad for a single human mind controlling flying bombs. Minho coordinated the defense from Luna, barely sleeping, surviving on coffee and determination. His tactics were working, but they were running out of resources. The mining drones were depleted, the construction robots were destroyed. The debris fields had been cleared. The aliens reached Earth's orbit on the 5th day. Behind them, they left a trail of wreckage. Human wreckage mostly, but also dozens of their own ships. The cost had been far higher than they'd anticipated. Both alien commanders met via holographic communication, something they rarely did given their war with each other. But both agreed. Humanity needed to be destroyed. These creatures were too dangerous to be allowed to survive. "We will bombard the planet," the Velkari commander declared. "Reduce their cities to glass. Eliminate this species before they become a greater threat." The Captain Yuna sat in the command chair of the destroyer Soul's Pride, watching the stars streak past as her small fleet moved through space. 6 ships total. Against the thousands that both the Valkyrie and Draxon commanded, it was nothing. A drop of water trying to stop an ocean. She didn't care. The odds had never mattered to her. What mattered was the mission. "Status report," she called out. Her tactical officer, a man named Jiho, checked his screens. "We're approaching the Xerxes belt. Sensors are picking up massive energy signatures. Looks like the intelligence was right. There's a major battle happening." "How major?" Yuna asked. "Over 300 ships engaged. Valkyrie and Draxon fleets are tearing each other apart. The destruction is—" Jiho paused, his face pale. "Captain, entire ships are being vaporized. The power levels they're throwing around are insane." Yuna allowed herself a small smile. "Perfect. They'll be too busy with each other to notice us. All ships, reduce power to minimum, go dark. We drift in like debris." The Soul's Pride and its 5 sister ships cut their engines and running lights. In the darkness of space, with their hulls painted in non-reflective black, they became nearly invisible. Just more chunks of rock and metal floating through the belt. Through the view screen, Yuna could see the battle. It was like watching gods fight. Massive Valkyrie ships, each one 3 times the size of her destroyer, fired beams of coherent light that could slice through armor like paper. The Draxon vessels responded with weapons that bent space itself, creating gravity wells that crushed their enemies. The 2 fleets circled each other in a formation that looked almost like a dance. Each side knew what the other would do. They followed patterns established over centuries of warfare. Attack, withdraw, regroup, attack again. It was predictable, professional, civilized in its own terrible way. "They're not even using their full capabilities." Hana's voice came over the communication channel. She was back on Geneva Station, analyzing the battle in real time. "Both sides are holding back. They're more interested in looking good than winning decisively." "Then let's show them what humans consider a winning strategy," Yuna said. "Jiho, target the Valkyrie command ship, the big crystalline one in the center of their formation." Captain?" Jiho's voice was uncertain. "That ship's shields could probably take hits from all 6 of our destroyers for a week straight." "We're not going through the shields," Yuna explained. "We're going around them. Suji, you ready?" From the engineering station, a young woman's voice responded. "Ready, Captain. The virus is loaded and waiting. Just get me close enough to their communication arrays." Yuna's plan was simple and completely insane. The Valkyrie and Draxon both used advanced AI systems to coordinate their fleets. These systems were sophisticated, powerful, and had one critical weakness. They had never encountered human computer viruses. Suji had spent the last 2 weeks creating something special. It wasn't a virus that destroyed systems. Instead, it caused confusion. Made ships think they were receiving orders from their commanders when they weren't. Created false sensor readings, turned their own technology against them. "All ships begin approach," Yuna ordered. "Stay in the asteroid field. Use the rocks for cover, and remember, we're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to prove a point." The 6 human ships drifted closer to the massive battle. They moved slowly, carefully, using the debris and asteroids as shields. To the aliens, busy with their carefully choreographed destruction of each other, the small human vessels were beneath notice. Jiho piloted his fighter ahead of the main group. He was one of the best pilots in the fleet, young enough to still think he was invincible. His small craft darted between spinning chunks of shattered ships and explosive debris, moving at speeds that should have been impossible. "That's insane," Hana's voice said over the comm. "The G-forces alone should have killed him." "Humans are stubborn that way," Yuna replied. "We refuse to die when it's inconvenient." Jiho laughed over the channel, his voice strained but excited. "I'm through their outer perimeter. Nobody's even looking at me. They really do think we're not a threat." "Maintain position," Yuna ordered. "Wait for the signal." On her tactical display, Yuna watched the battle unfold. The Valkyrie were pushing forward, trying to flank the Draxon left side. The Draxon were responding exactly as predicted, moving their heavy ships to counter. It was all so orderly, so predictable. "Now," Yuna said quietly. The Soul's Pride suddenly lit up its engines, burning at full power directly toward the Valkyrie command ship. At the same instant, the other 5 destroyers broke from the asteroid field and began firing at multiple targets across both fleets. The aliens' response was immediate confusion. Sensors that had been focused on each other suddenly detected new threats. Ships that had been following complex battle plans received contradictory orders. The careful formation began to break apart. Jiho used the chaos to his advantage. His fighter was so small compared to the massive alien vessels that their targeting systems couldn't lock onto him. He zipped past shield generators, under weapon emplacements, through gaps in armor that weren't supposed to exist. "I'm at the communication array," he called out. "Uploading now." The virus worked faster than anyone expected. Within seconds, the Velkari command ship systems began to malfunction. Its weapons fired at random. Its shields flickered. Its engines cut out, leaving it drifting, but Suji hadn't stopped there. The virus spread through the Velkari communication network like wildfire. Every ship in their fleet suddenly thought it was receiving new orders. "Turn left, turn right, fire on the ship next to you, return to base, attack everything." The Velkari fleet descended into chaos. Switching to Draxan targets, Yuna announced. Her ship came about, its smaller weapons firing at the tentacled species ships. The shots did almost no damage, but that wasn't the point. The point was to make them angry. The Draxan fleet noticed the humans now. How could they not? These tiny ships were buzzing around like angry insects, striking at random, impossible to predict. And now the Draxan were also experiencing system failures. Their AI networks, infected by a modified version of the same virus, began giving false information. A Draxan dreadnought, trying to target Yuna's ship, instead fired on its own allies. Another vessel attempted to activate its gravity weapons and accidentally created a well that pulled in 3 nearby Draxan cruisers. "All ships, scatter," Yuna ordered. "Don't stay in one place. Keep them guessing." The human destroyers split up, each one darting through the massive battle in seemingly random patterns. They fired at targets of opportunity, uploaded more viruses into any communication arrays they could reach, and generally made themselves as annoying as possible. Jiho performed a maneuver that would later be taught in military academies across human space. He flew his fighter through the exhaust ports of a Velkari battleship, came out the other side, and somehow managed to plant a magnetic mine on its power core before escaping. The resulting explosion took out 3 nearby ships. "This is amazing," Jiho laughed over the comm. "They can't hit us because we're too small and too fast, and they're so busy following their precious protocols that they can't adapt." "Don't get cocky," Yuna warned, but she was smiling. This was working better than anyone had hoped. On Geneva Station, Hana watched the battle with growing amazement. The data pouring in showed something unprecedented. 2 advanced alien civilizations with technology centuries ahead of humanity were being disrupted by 6 small ships and 1 really good computer virus. "It's not just the virus," she said to Taeyang, who stood beside her. "It's their mindset. They can't comprehend warfare that doesn't follow rules. Every time they try to respond to the human ships, they use standard tactical responses, and the humans just ignore those responses and do something completely different." Taeyang nodded. "They've been fighting each other for so long that they've forgotten war is supposed to be unpredictable. They've turned it into a game with set pieces and expected moves. Humans don't play games when lives are at stake. We fight dirty." Back in the Xerxes belt, Yuna made her decision. They had proven their point. The aliens knew humanity was here now. Time to leave before the enemy adapted. "All ships, withdraw," she ordered. "Use the asteroid field for cover. Jiho, get back here." The human ships vanished as quickly as they'd appeared, slipping back into the darkness of space. Behind them, they left chaos. Both alien fleets were in disarray, their careful battle plans ruined, their systems compromised, their pride damaged. The casualty report came in an hour later. 17 Velkari ships destroyed or crippled, 14 Draxan vessels out of action. And the humans? 0 casualties, not a single ship lost. A few scratches on the armor, some minor system damage, but nothing serious. When Junho received the report, he read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Then he started laughing. It was the kind of laugh that came from stress and relief and disbelief all mixed together. "They did it," he said to Hana. "That crazy plan actually worked." "Of course it worked," Hana replied. "We studied them. We understood their weaknesses. And we did something they never expected. We ignored the rules of their war and made up our own." The news spread across human space within hours. Every colony, every station, every settlement heard about the victory. It was small. It was just 1 battle. The conference room on Geneva Station floated in the darkness of space, its large windows showing the blue curve of Earth below. Inside, the air felt thick with tension. Commander Junho stood at the head of the long table, his hands clasped behind his back. He watched the two alien delegates with careful eyes. The Velkari ambassador was tall, nearly 3 meters high. Its body looked like it was made of living crystal, catching the light and throwing rainbows across the walls. When it moved, a sound like wind chimes filled the room. The creature had no face that humans could recognize, just smooth surfaces that somehow conveyed arrogance. Across from it sat the Draxan representative. This one was different. Its body was soft and purple, covered in tentacles that never stopped moving. 6 dark eyes studied the humans with an intelligence that felt cold and calculating. The translator device on its body turned its thoughts into words humans could understand. "This is not a request," the Velkari said. Its voice sounded like singing crystal. "This is a statement of fact. Your species will evacuate the 3 colonies in sectors 7, 9, and 12. You will do this within 30 days. Hana, the lead scientist on Junho's team, leaned forward. She was smaller than the commander, but her mind was sharp as a blade. "Those colonies have over 2 million human citizens. Where exactly do you expect them to go?" The Draxan's tentacles writhed in what might have been amusement. "That is not our concern. The war between our people and the Velkari has reached a critical stage. These sectors will become battlegrounds. Your presence there is inconvenient." Taeyang, the military strategist, narrowed his eyes. He was the youngest person at the table, but he had studied every piece of information about both alien species. "Inconvenient? Those are our homes. Our people have lived there for 20 years. 20 years. The Velkari made that chiming sound again. "We have fought wars longer than your entire species has existed. The Velkari Empire has stood for 12,000 cycles. The Draxan Collective is equally ancient. Your kind has barely learned to leave your birth world. You cannot comprehend the scale of what we are discussing." Junho remained silent, but his jaw tightened. He had expected arrogance, but this was worse. These aliens didn't just look down on humanity. They didn't see humans as people at all, just obstacles, things to be moved out of the way. The Velkari continued. "You have built your little homes in space that belongs to greater powers. This was foolish. Now you must correct this mistake. Move your people. Stay out of our war. This is the only warning you will receive. And if we refuse?" Junho asked quietly. Both aliens seemed surprised that he had spoken. The Draxan's eyes focused on him with renewed interest. "Refuse? You do not understand. There is no refusal. The fleets of both our civilizations number in the thousands. Each of our ships could destroy every human vessel in existence. Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is barely worthy of the name. You have been in space for what, 70 of your years?" 73, Hana corrected, her voice sharp. "Irrelevant," the Velkari said. "We have observed your expansion. You are children playing with toys you do not understand. Your ships are slow. Your weapons weak. Your soldiers fragile. You break so easily. The cold of space kills you. Radiation sickens you. You require so much just to survive beyond your little blue world." The Draxan added, "Our war has destroyed civilizations more advanced than yours. Entire species have been erased from existence. Star systems have been reduced to dead rock and frozen gas. And you think you can refuse us?" Taeyang's hand curled into a fist under the table, but he kept his expression neutral. He had spent months studying the patterns of this war. Both sides fought with massive fleets, always in open space, always following predictable strategies. It was warfare by formula, unchanged for centuries. "We are not asking for your permission," the Velkari said. Its crystalline body caught the light from Earth below. "We are informing you of reality. Your species is too young, too weak, too insignificant to matter in this conflict. Be grateful we are giving you warning at all. Other species received no such courtesy." Junho finally spoke again, his voice calm and steady. "I understand your position. We will discuss this among our people and provide you with our answer." The Velkari made a sound like breaking glass. Laughter, perhaps. "Your answer is already known. You will comply. You have no choice, unless you wish your entire species to be caught in the crossfire of forces beyond your comprehension." The Draxan stood, its tentacles lifting its body from the chair. "We depart now. We have wasted enough time on this matter. Evacuate your colonies or do not. If you remain, the consequences are your own. Both the Velkari and the Draxan will consider any human presence in those sectors as acceptable casualties. Acceptable casualties, Hana repeated, her voice cold with anger. You do not matter enough to be anything else, the Velkari said simply. In the great game of galactic power, humanity is less than a piece on the board. You are a smudge that can be easily erased. The two aliens left the conference room without another word. The door sealed behind them with a soft hiss. For a long moment nobody spoke. Junho walked to the window and looked down at Earth. From here it looked so peaceful, so beautiful. 7 billion humans lived on that world, and billions more on the colonies scattered across nearby space. They think we're nothing, Taiyang said finally. His voice shook with barely controlled rage. They think we'll just roll over and accept this. Hana pulled up data on her tablet. I recorded everything. Their body language, their word choices, their assumptions. Commander, they're not just arrogant. They're blind. They've been fighting each other for so long that they've forgotten how to think differently. What are you saying? Junho asked, turning from the window. I'm saying they fight like chess players who've memorized every possible move. They expect their opponents to follow the same rules they do. They can't imagine someone who plays a different game entirely. Hana's eyes gleamed with an idea forming. They called us weak. They called us fragile. They called us insignificant. And? Taiyang prompted. And they're right, she said with a cold smile. We are weaker. We are more fragile. Our ships are slower and our weapons less powerful. But they've made a critical error. They've assumed that means we'll do nothing. That we'll accept our place as lesser beings. Junho understood immediately. They've never fought humans before. Exactly, Hana said. They've fought other ancient species, other powerful empires. They've never fought someone who has everything to prove and nothing to lose. Someone who doesn't know the rules because no one bothered to teach them. Taiyang stood up, excitement replacing his anger. Someone who's too young and too stupid to know when they're beaten. We need to call an emergency session of the coalition, Junho said. Every representative from every colony, every military commander, every scientist who's been studying these species. He looked at his two colleagues. Those aliens wanted us to stay out of their war. They should have asked nicely, Hana finished. Outside the window, Earth continued its eternal rotation. On that world and on dozens of colonies beyond, millions of humans were about to learn that their species had been threatened. And humanity, young and reckless and unwilling to back down, was about to make a decision that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The aliens believed humans would stay out of their war. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The emergency session of the United Earth Coalition began exactly 12 hours after the alien delegates left. Representatives from every human colony filled the massive chamber, some appearing in person, others as holographic projections from distant worlds. The room buzzed with angry voices. Junho stood at the central podium waiting for silence. He didn't have to wait long. When people saw his face, they quieted down. Everyone knew what was coming. The news had spread fast. 2 ancient alien empires had ordered humanity to abandon 3 entire colonies. Just pack up and leave. No discussion. No negotiation. They gave us 30 days, Junho began, his voice carrying across the chamber. 30 days to evacuate 2 million citizens from their homes. 30 days to abandon everything we've built in those sectors. 30 days to prove that humanity knows its place in the galaxy. A representative from the Mars colonies stood up. Her name was Bora, and her face was red with anger. And what happens if we don't? Do they really think they can just push us around because they're older? Because they have bigger ships? Yes, Hana answered from her position next to Junho. That's exactly what they think. I've spent the last 12 hours analyzing their behavior, their language patterns, their cultural databases. Both the Velkari and the Draxan come from worlds where they evolved as the dominant species. No competition. No real challenges. They've been in space for thousands of years, and in all that time they've only fought each other and species similar to them. Taiyang activated a display that showed star maps of the region. Red zones marked the territories controlled by the Velkari. Blue zones showed Draxan space. The 3 human colonies in question sat right on the border between them. Tiny green dots in an ocean of red and blue. Here's what we know about their war, Taiyang explained. They've been fighting for 12 cycles. That's about 15 years in Earth time. The conflict started over resource disputes in the neutral zone. Both sides commit huge fleets to major battles. These battles follow predictable patterns. They meet in open space, exchange fire for hours or days, then withdraw to repair and regroup. So they're evenly matched, someone called out. Exactly, Taeyang confirmed. Neither side has managed to gain a significant advantage. Their technology is roughly equal. Their tactics are similar. It's a stalemate. And that's what makes this dangerous for us. They're looking for any edge they can get. Our colonies sit on strategic locations they both want. A representative from Europa Station spoke up. His name was Kai, and he had military experience. What are our options? Realistically, can we fight them? The chamber went silent. That was the question everyone wanted to ask but feared the answer to. Junho looked around the room. According to every military analysis, no. We cannot fight them. Not in conventional terms. A single Valkyrie battleship has more firepower than our entire defense fleet combined. The Draxan possess technology that can disable our systems from light years away. On paper, we lose badly. Then we have to evacuate, someone said. We have no choice. No, Hana said firmly. We have a choice. We always have a choice. The question is whether we're willing to make the hard one. She pulled up data on the main screen. Images of Valkyrie and Draxan military formations appeared, along with battle records, tactical analyses, and cultural studies. Look at how they fight. Look at their patterns. Both species approach warfare as a ritual. They challenge each other to battles in predetermined locations. They use formations that haven't changed in centuries. They follow rules of engagement that both sides respect. Rules we don't know. Taeyang added with a slight smile. Rules we never agreed to follow. The implications began to sink in. A woman named Yunji, who commanded a small defense station, leaned forward. You're suggesting we don't fight them on their terms? I'm suggesting we don't fight them at all, Taeyang said. Not the way they expect. We don't have the strength to meet them head on, so we don't try. We use guerrilla tactics. Hit and run. Strike where they're weak, vanish before they can respond. Make them fight our war, not theirs. That's insane, someone protested. They'll crush us. Maybe, Junho admitted. But if we evacuate those colonies, what message does that send? That humanity will back down when threatened? That we accept being second-class citizens in the galaxy? That any species with bigger guns can tell us where we can and cannot live? He paused, letting his words settle. Our ancestors faced impossible odds before. Small groups against vast empires, primitive weapons against superior technology, and sometimes, just sometimes, the underdog wins. Not because they're stronger, but because they're willing to do what the enemy thinks is impossible. A young officer named Yuna stood up. She looked barely old enough to be in the military, but her record showed she was one of the best pilots humanity had. Commander Junho, if we do this, if we actually fight back, we need to hit them first, hard. Make them understand that humans are not prey. Agreed, Junho said. Which is why I'm asking for volunteers. We need a strike force. Small, fast, expendable if necessary. The mission will be dangerous. Many of you might not come back, Yuna didn't hesitate. I volunteer. My ship and crew, others began standing, Kai, Yunji, a dozen more. Within minutes, over 100 officers and soldiers had volunteered for a mission that was essentially suicide by any reasonable military standard. Hana felt something tighten in her chest. These people were willing to die to prove a point, to show the galaxy that humanity mattered. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. There's something else we need to consider, Hana said. If we do this, we make enemies of both the Valkyrie and the Draxan. Right now, they're fighting each other. If we attack them, they might temporarily unite against us. We could be facing both empires at once. Good, Taeyang said, and there was something fierce in his voice. Let them come together. Let them stop fighting each other and focus on us. Because while they're worrying about the crazy humans who don't know when to quit, they're not destroying each other. And maybe, just maybe, we force them to realize that their war is pointless. Bora spoke again, her voice calmer now. What about Earth? What about the colonies that aren't in the danger zone? If we do this, we're putting billions of lives at risk. We are, Junho agreed. And that's why this has to be a democratic decision. Every colony, every station, every settlement, we vote. If the majority says evacuate, then we evacuate. But if the majority says fight, then we fight with everything we have. The vote took 6 hours. Representatives contacted their home colonies, explained the situation, gathered opinions from their people. It was the most important decision humanity had made since leaving Earth. Stay or fight. accept their place as inferiors, or risk everything for pride and principle. The results came in slowly. Mars voted to fight. The Belt colonies voted to fight. Europa, Titan, and the outer settlements all voted the same way. The 3 colonies that were being threatened voted to fight, even though they knew they'd be the first targets. When the final tally appeared on the screen, there was no doubt. 87% of humanity voted to fight. Junho looked at the number and felt the weight of billions of lives settle on his shoulders. Then it's decided. We go to war. Taeyang, begin preparations for the first strike. Hana, I need every weakness you can find in both species. Cultural, biological, technological. Anything we can exploit. Yuna, gather your volunteers. You leave in 48 hours. As the chamber emptied, people moved with purpose. There was no more anger, no more fear, just determination. They were going to fight. They were going to prove that humanity was not some insignificant species that could be pushed around. Junho stood alone at the podium for a moment, looking at the empty seats. In his hand was a datapad containing a message to be sent to both the Velkari and the Draxon. He had written it himself, choosing each word carefully. The message was simple. You wanted us to stay out of your war. You should have asked nicely. Humanity rejects your demands. The 3 colonies will remain exactly where they are. If you have a problem with that, come and do something about it. We'll be waiting. He sent the message and felt no regret. The die was cast. The aliens would receive his response within hours. Their reactions would likely be dismissal, maybe amusement. Surely the humans weren't serious. Surely they understood how badly this would go for them. But Junho knew something the aliens didn't. Something that made all the difference. Humanity had spent its entire existence as underdogs. Every human alive was descended from ancestors who faced impossible odds and somehow survived. It was in their blood, coded into their genes, the instinct to fight when cornered, the refusal to quit even when defeat seemed certain. The aliens were about to learn a hard lesson. They were about to discover that the most dangerous enemy is not the strong one. It's the desperate one, the one with nothing to lose and everything to prove. They wanted humans to stay out of their war. Instead, they were about to get something much worse. They were about to get humanity's full attention.